Welcome to Trigger Talk, your place for everything first-person shooters like Battlefield, Call of Duty, and so much more. I'm your host, Sage Goodwin, and as always, I'm joined by Sammy Boy. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, man. How are you?
Doing fantastic. Ready to hop in. Today, we're talking about Battlefield 2042 Season 7 being the last season, what this means for the game, and our thoughts generally about the experience up to this point. Let's jump in and head to the Battlefield show. So I feel like our discussion last week was quite timely.
Yeah, it feels like we've been kind of trying to get that timing right for about 3 seasons now. Finally, it's turned out. I feel like in season 5 we were kind of like, I wonder if this will be the last season and what are they going to do and all that. And then no, we got season 6 and then we got season 7. But finally, our discussion about it has actually lined up with what we kind of thought was going to happen.
Yeah, and really leads in from that last podcast discussion that we had, which was this basically our thoughts on the state of Battlefield. Like, if they're going to continue the game, we need direct communication, and if they don't continue the game, that's also kind of okay. Well, we got the latter of the two discussions. They are ending the game after season 7 to quite a mixed response. I saw everything from hallelujah finally to actually a lot of people really disappointed with it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I was surprised by people being disappointed. And don't get me wrong, it's always a little bit bittersweet. Even for me, I've been saying, I think since season 5 and 6, that I just think they should have moved on and get ready, really gear up for the next one. So I'm happy with the decision, but even still, it's a bit it's kind of sad. Every time one gets cancelled, it's a bit that kind of sucks.
Well, and DICE has the tendency, not even just the tendency, the pattern of releasing a game poorly, fixing it, and as soon as people are like, hey man, this is actually pretty good, they end it. This has happened 3 times now. 4?
Yeah.
3?
Probably
3.
Definitely 3, and even probably Battlefield 1 I guess made sense, but for me it was I would almost count that because I kind of wanted Battlefield 1 to just last forever, to be honest.
Yeah,
but it was probably
too soon.
Yeah, it was probably time. The live service of that game actually wasn't as good as other games, so yeah, I'd probably say just Battlefront 2, Battlefield 5, and now this would count.
Which it's a shame that this is the kind of studio that they run. Which we've talked about this a lot in the past. I think they need drastic changes internally to get away from this idea of just ship it and we'll fix it later, because technically it's worked for them 3 times. It has been damaging to their brand every single time that they've done it.
Yeah, I think it doesn't really matter if you fix it by the end. The initial damage is done. I talk to a lot of people that now just think, maybe people who aren't as in tune with the shooter genre, who just think Battlefield is just dead. They don't, which if they actually had, played the recent updates and all that kind of thing, they'd go, oh, this isn't bad. I don't know why people are saying this sucks. But
yeah,
the initial damage does matter. It's even to this day, I still see people saying about Battlefront 2 that it was pay to win.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It's been 7 years since that game came out, and it was essentially after a month, not even a month. It was the first week of launch, and in fact, wasn't it even the beta that they turned the pay to win side of it off, where you couldn't buy you couldn't pay for Darth Vader and stuff like that. So it almost never was pay to win, and people still think it was. And it's kind of the same with the Battlefield franchise, where launched so poorly that people still think it sucks, when the current state of 2042 isn't bad at all. It doesn't mean it's the best game. It's not the best Battlefield game, but I think it's a fine first-person shooter. I think I've definitely played a lot of worse games at this point. But people talk about it like it's, oh my god, what an absolute astronomical fail. And to be fair, I guess it kind of is a fail because of that launch. And so it doesn't matter how much you turn it around. We as the players, we go, oh, we appreciate all you've done, DICE. You've genuinely fixed it and all that kind of stuff. But it doesn't really matter what we think because we're the hardcore players. We're going to buy the next one. You've got to sell that to the casuals as well, and the casual players would not be looking at 2042 like they don't care if it's turned around because they don't really know that. They just know it launched terribly. So they do need to break that cycle, and yeah, I'm not fully confident they will, but at least there's a few signs pointing towards the fact that they can, with it being a 4-year cycle this time. They've clearly actually taken the time. They could have had every right to just put it out this year. Like, I genuinely think it would not have surprised me if they said the next Battlefield's coming out in October this year. So the fact they've pushed it back, the fact that they've also cancelled this to give it a bit of breathing room, it makes me think, okay, like maybe they have finally learned, whether that the execution still needs to, it doesn't matter how much they know that they need to do it, they still have to actually execute that. But
yeah,
it makes me kind of think, okay, they must know that, like, we kind of have to get the next launch done properly. So I guess we're just gonna have to wait and see. I'm not confident about it, but I'd say I'm more confident about it than I probably was with this one, because I was confident they had listened and the trailers and stuff looked really good, but I also, the time period was just like 3 years wasn't enough. Keep in mind, it's during COVID when this was coming out. So I'm definitely more confident the next game can launch well than 2042. But yeah, I'm at the point with DICE where it's like, until they actually prove me wrong, I don't think I can ever be like, yeah, I'm fully confident the next one will be good. They need to actually earn our trust completely back, which is, it's not an easy feat at all.
Yeah, no, not at all. I think it's hard for any company of the size that DICE is, especially now that they've got all the various game studios working on it. It's hard to change the corporate structure, the culture of any company at that scale. It's a big ship. It takes a long time to move. But it needs to move. It needs to shift. Something needs to change. They've lost so many of their original core group. This is a game studio that's been going on for 40 years now. They have the flesh. They have the fresh blood. But we saw with Battlefield 2042 that doesn't mean it's going to be a good change. They need to have a good balance of like core experiences with this world, taking in the experiences of the past games, looking at what worked, looking at what did not work, and shift that into the future instead of like trying to recreate the wheel every single time.
Yeah, that's my main issue with how they've sort of handled it, is that it does feel like they're trying to innovate each time, but the innovations aren't good innovations. And I just want them to go back to their roots for the next one. That's my thing. I really want Bad Company 3, and I just want it to be very bare bones. Just give me core Battlefield. I don't need all the horns and whistles, and I just want a very Battlefield feeling game. Which they didn't really do with this game. I think they tried to make it feel Battlefieldy, but also at the same time innovate and make it bigger and grander and stuff. And I just think that's where they went wrong in essentially the scale of it and stuff. Because I think if they didn't spend so much time and energy on the overall scale of the game, the amount of players, the size of the maps and stuff, they could have made this game decent. But because, look at all of the base maps, there was 7. If we had have got 7 maps that were designed kind of properly rather than just designed for how big can we make them, I feel like those maps could have been good. And obviously there was still a lot of issues at launch, but also, a lot of that time that they were spending on other stuff, they could have spent on fixing bugs and getting it really stable. And so this game could have had a very drastically different launch had they just made it a bit smaller. But I think the scale just really got in the way that it was. And don't get me wrong, I get what they were going for. On paper, it sounds cool. Like, let's make the bigger, better Battlefield. It sounds good, but it just didn't It's just not what we really want as players, I think. It's not, I don't know. It's the type of thing where I think that was almost maybe sold to them by the higher-ups rather than the actual developers. Because on paper,
More
it sounds
numbers
good.
means no more numbers.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it sounds like that is the type of stuff that the CEOs and stuff would be saying, like, oh, Battlefield seems like a big game with lots of, destruction and all that. Let's just make it huge. Let's make the biggest one ever. And it sounds good, but it just, the execution and also even the concept to an extent it just didn't work.
Yeah. And I want to bring this bit into the discussion too. Tom Henderson with Insider Gaming has 2 details that he's been reporting on, and he says that, which makes me hopeful. First off, the specialist unit consists of soldiers from other fallen superpowers that are not USA and Russia, so I think that's a good move. Hopefully it's multiples of them, so it makes it feel a little bit more of like a bigger world, because I think the world feels pretty small in 2042. And then the next Battlefield game is going to be a sequel to Battlefield 4.
Yeah, which is funny because I kind of thought this was a sequel to that, really, because like...
Well, technically it was if you look at the timeline, because you've got like Irish in there.
Yeah, so I guess does that mean it's a prequel to this? Like, I'm not, like, because that's the part that
sequel
confuses
prequel.
Me. Yeah, like, is this timeline 2042? Is this the canon Battlefield timeline after Battlefield 4, or are they going to like retcon that and this was just like a spin-off? Because that's, if they make a spin-off, I don't really care. I don't need all the games to link up together and stuff. But to me, a sequel to Battlefield 4 is a prequel to this. Like, I don't know how else they can. Yeah, which I guess also can make sense if they want to go back and show the start of this war and all that kind of thing. Then yeah, that can be fine. The concept of this game in terms of the setting and the story, I don't mind it. The lore itself is not that good because it's like all the like the leaders of each faction and stuff. It's like who I still don't even know half the people that. What's the name of the dude who's like there's like this one guy who's not on either side. I forget his name, and he was in I want to say season 2. They sort of brought him in, but we'd never seen him or anything. He's just like this guy in the background. I can't remember the name of him, but do you know who I'm talking about? He's he's like just this. I can't remember what faction he's even linked with, but it's like, and he's got like a typical like an alias name sort of thing. But my point is that like all of that side of the lore, in my opinion, sucks. It just doesn't bother me. The actual core story of the world kind of went to shit, and like, all the global warming stuff and also just war in general brought all of pretty much the entire world to the state that it's in. And now there's just kind of like governmentless bodies of people that are just trying to fight for survival. That story is cool to me. The actual base of the story is cool. So to see that unfold and see the world kind of going to shit would be pretty cool if they can tell that story in the next game. I'm down for that because that actually did always interest me. The basis of this story. It's just that the actual fleshing out of the lore of it just never landed for me.
Yeah, it's not very cohesive. Generally.
Yeah.
There's so much to unpack with those two like pieces of detail. I do wonder, because he calls it Battlefield, like all caps. I honestly think that might be the path that they're going to go down. I could totally see this being the next game just being Battlefield.
I think it will. I think this game will just be called Battlefield, and I think they're going to do. I've seen I don't know how much truth there is to it. It's more like speculation of what people have been saying. I think that they will potentially kind of redo Portal in a way that they may do seasons that are like games and bring into the actual core game. So it won't be a separate mode like Portal. They may just have a Battlefield game and then there'll be like seasonal content that brings in Battlefield 3, maps and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because they did say that 2042 was going to be I can't remember the exact words they used, but they said it was going to be essentially the foundation of the franchise moving forward or whatever. So, yeah. I have always actually randomly felt that the next one would just be called Battlefield if they're going to go and just make this like it feels like they need to like reset it. Like the franchise needs to be like almost a reboot, which is kind of weird if it is going to be linked. If it is a sequel to Battlefield 4, then it's not really a reboot. If I'm honest, I almost want them to just genuinely restart in the same way Call of Duty's done that with the Modern Warfare franchise.
Yeah.
And I think I honestly think those games suck, but like the actual, the reboot itself, I think has been a success. And I think that it is cool getting like when Modern Warfare 3 came out, there's characters in there. The whole story is different and stuff, but there is characters that you're like, oh, that's the dude from the first one. I kind of like that. So I would be fully down for them to just fully reboot Battlefield as an entire franchise and just call this one Battlefield. And then they can call the next one. I mean, like maybe Battlefield 1 is too recent, but they could just call the next one Battlefield 1 and then Battlefield 2, Battlefield 3, because it will be like 10 to 15 years since those games at that point, if not more.
Which is depressing to think about.
Yeah. So I think that would be cool to just have the next one be called Battlefield because it would make it feel like it's going back to its roots a little bit. But also, to be honest, I want Bad Company 3, and I will literally be mad if it's not. Like, I don't care how good it is. If they don't give us another Bad Company game, I'm going to be... I shouldn't set myself up for expectations like that, but I'll straight up just be like instant disappointment if they don't give us a Bad Company 3.
Yeah. What do you think? Like, I have so many thoughts when it comes to this announcement. I think there's opportunity for it to be like what you're saying, like bringing in these aspects from the past games, bringing in this like overhaul, rebrand type thing. I think it's time for them just to nuke everything and go in with fresh pair of eyes. Say, this is just Battlefield. As much crap as they're going to get for calling it just Battlefield, going from like Battlefield 3, 4, 1, 5, 2042 to Battlefield, it's exactly what it needs. It needs that reset. It needs the time to just say, hey guys, you all have preconceived notions for what modern Battlefield is. You've all got ideas on what past Battlefield is. This is a combination of those two things. Because honestly, that's what they need to do. But they need to lean much more heavily on the past of Battlefield. They need to bring it back. They've gone too far away from the core experience that Battlefield needs to offer. Yeah. And it's time to go back.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and like the thing with the name stuff is that I think they would get roasted, but they will, like, the naming has always been weird, I feel, for Battlefield. Like when it went from 3 to 4
the first one was 1942.
Yeah, exactly. Like when it went from 3 to 4 to 1, we were all like, oh, that's a weird name. But it also made sense because it was World War One. Then Battlefield 5 kind of didn't make sense. But I don't think anyone really cared. It was like, okay, I guess that's what it's called. So if they went back to Battlefield, I don't think that it would hint. I think a lot of people would see that as like, oh, this is like maybe an actual reboot. Or, this is just Battlefield. There's no number. There's no whatever. It's just a restart. I think that's how people would take that. And I think that is what they need to do. And treat it the same way. Not trying to say that they need to copy Call of Duty, because that's the whole point. We've been saying they need to not do that. But like, from my perspective, if they treated it like the Modern Warfare reboot, I think that would be cool to just give us a game called Battlefield that is set in roughly the same time period as Battlefield 3 and 4. I think it needs to be modern. I don't think they can do a World War II or anything like that. They need to do a modern Battlefield and just set it in that time period. Make up World War 3 just completely separate from anything that we've had before. It's just there's just a current world war going on, we get a campaign telling, whether it's just like the American story or whether we get kind of like the war stories that they've done in the past where it's different stories from different countries and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which would probably be the better way to do it, because then you can have a map. You know, you can have like, for example, there could be someone's in, like Russia's invading America, right? And there's an American map that we fight on, and that can then be a multiplayer map. Then there's like, they want to do Sweden again, they can have someone's invading Sweden and there's a Swedish map or whatever. They can do that way. Give us a real gritty, like real, none of this jokey stuff. I don't want that. That's not Battlefield. It never really was. It has got banter in it, but it's like war banter. It's like that happens in real life, that like soldiers will banter with each other and stuff. That's different than like McKay talking about how many cups of coffee he's had and stuff. That's just not funny. No one likes that. No one wants that in Battlefield. Give us a gritty story or gritty setting. I don't really care about the story, to be honest. I'm here for multiplayer, but give us a gritty, real feeling setting. And into that, they can then do like what you said about leaning on the past. Every now and then, give me a Battlefield 4 map in the game, not in Portal, not in some side mode. Bring back like Siege of Shanghai as a core map. People would love that if it's actually in the core game. Provided the rest of the game's good. If the game sucks and then they bring back like old maps, I think people would be mad because they're like, oh, you can't make good maps. You're just bringing back the old ones. But
you're just nostalgia baiting us.
Yeah. If the game itself is good and then they do that, I think people would love that. I think if the core game had, for example, 8 maps that are really solid and let's just pretend in this fantasy world that DICE launches a good Battlefield game for once in their life.
Yeah.
And it's all just going really well. It might not be the best Battlefield, but it's an 8 out of 10 minimum at launch. It's all stable. It just feels good to play. Season 1, we get a new map. It's really fun. Season 2, we get another new map. Season 3, Siege of Shanghai is back. People would absolutely love that. And that's, I feel, what they need to do is to bring it back to its roots with not fully relying on old stuff, but make it feel like an old Battlefield. And then you can bring old Battlefield stuff into it. And I think people would eat that up. And it would make people kind of feel that's the type of thing that could bring players back who maybe had just moved away. Mm-hmm. But after season, the game launches well, then we get season 1, then we get season 2, or whatever, how they want to do it. And these players might be hearing in the background, oh, this Battlefield game's actually launched really well. They might not believe that straight away, but then they announce, hey, this fan favorite map's coming back. That's the thing that could bring back the old players. And then if the base game's good enough, they go, oh, I was wrong. This is actually a decent game. And like, yeah, they brought back an old map, but the core maps are also good and the gunplay is good and all that kind of thing. So I think that's how they need to do it. Or at least not so much need to do it. That's just how I would want them to do it. Because for me, I think that's what would sell me the most. If they just gave me a really core feeling Battlefield game, like an old school, I want a game that just feels like Battlefield 3 and 4. And if they do that and then, bring back some old maps, and it doesn't even have to be a whole map, just like a map that's set in Shanghai. And it's like, damn, this kind of feels like Siege of Shanghai. It might not be the exact same map, but just little nods to the past. I think that's because that's what Modern Warfare has done really well. Like I said, I think those games actually suck, but there's a lot of little nods in it that you're like, damn, that's cool to see this. Like, even just an old weapon, a fan favorite weapon is back in the game. All the other weapons are different, but this one weapon is like a fan favorite. I think that makes people feel a bit closer to the game, I guess.
Mm-hmm. No, they need something that like brings back the core audience that they lost with 2042. And like, honestly, what they should do is they should put the team that like has handled all the live service stuff, they should put them in charge.
Yeah.
That way they actually know what has to be done if they screw it up. Because whoever's making those decisions now, they don't realize the repercussions of their actions, I don't think.
Yeah. That's the thing that I'm just curious to see is like, have they actually learned from the launches? They know how to fix it. We all know that. Do they know that if they launch it properly, they don't have to fix it? They can just do a proper live service without having to fix everything. It just genuinely doesn't feel like they know that yet.
Yeah. But on that same kind of similar vein, Do you just wish that there was an EA team, like development company specifically focused on Battlefield and more than likely going to be focused on the campaign for Battlefield? Don't you ever just wish that existed?
I do, and I feel like off the top of my head, I feel like one did recently, and then it didn't.
I don't think I recall ever happening. What are you talking about?
I think maybe I dreamed it. Actually, I'm not sure because I know for a fact.
Maybe it was when you were on the ridge somewhere.
Yeah,
like on like a line across a ridge.
Yeah,
maybe.
I'm not really sure. I think I definitely dreamt it though because factually checking it now, there isn't one. So I just know I'm wrong. I'm obviously wrong that there was one.
Clearly, because Motive is going to be that company. I know you were probably thinking like, hey, wouldn't Ridgeline Games be like the perfect studio for this? No, clearly.
Obviously not. Obviously, that would be stupid.
Stupid, idiotic, even.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so they canceled, they closed an entire studio, had a bunch of layoffs. Marcus Leto left, and their whole team was dedicated for like the campaign side of Battlefield. Like that was what they were a part of. They had a bunch of like hiring. Marcus Leto was spending time with the whole teams across all of DICE and Battlefield Studios, and then they got canceled. And now Motive is building a new team dedicated to Battlefield, the next game. What world are we living in?
Yeah. The part that really baffles me is that they've said they're like making a new Motive studio. Like what? Like there was one. It was called Ridgeline Games.
Yeah.
There's already a Motive team. Like I don't understand why it has to come under the banner of Motive. Motive, for those who don't know, Motive is also working on the Iron Man game, so they're preoccupied. We don't need Motive involved in this game. And if they're going to make a new studio, there was one. It was called Ridgeline Games. Use them. Rebrand them to Motive freaking Seattle if you. I don't care what it's called. Freaking don't fire a bunch of people and then hire a bunch of new people. What are you doing? What the hell? It's actually. It does not make any sense to me. Or at least just at the very minimum, if they, for whatever reason, like there may be just some reason they have to do, like financially they just have to do this. I don't know. I don't work at EA. Surely merge them at the very minimum. Surely that if they're making a new studio from Motive, and obviously they would be taking some people who are already at Motive, maybe working on the Iron Man game, maybe Motive's worked on other stuff at the, like, they're not just working on Iron Man, I don't think. I could be wrong on that. But, like, they did
the Dead Space remake.
Yeah, that was it. So, like, there's obviously people at Motive, right, that they were already at Motive and now they've been moved to this new Motive studio that's going to be on Battlefield.
The press release says this.
Yeah,
the directors who delivered our Dead Space remake in 2023, Felipe Duchamp and Roman Campos Oriola.
I'm glad you tried to pronounce them because there's no chance I would be able to pronounce those.
I'm pretty sure it's Duchamp. Felipe Duchamp.
That actually does ring a bell.
Campos Oriola. It's the executive producer and the creative director of Dead Space Remake. They are, quote, they will bring, here it is. Quote, will build a team at Motive to work alongside the Battlefield studios around the world, creating what's next for Battlefield, a universe across both multiplayer and single-player experiences. Their proven expertise in storytelling, immersive battles, and developing on the Frostbite engine uniquely positions them to help advance the vision for Battlefield led by Vince Ampella and Byron Bede. In parallel, development continues to move forward on our Iron Man project. The team made excellent progress this year, hitting a major milestone and laying a robust foundation for the journey ahead. Iron Man is an important priority for Motive, and I'm very proud of the work we've accomplished so far. If you want to join our world-class teams in Montreal, take a look at our open worlds. So yeah, they're building a brand new team. I see the benefit. Motive's worked in Frostbite. They're very familiar with it. Maybe that was like the holdup with Ridgeline coming from like the not Frostbite side of things. Maybe that was like the culture was like trying to move away from that, and there was controversy struggles there. Who knows? We don't know. This is all speculation. But the fact that they canceled one studio to build another entirely new team as part of another company, it's just really weird.
Yeah. Like I was saying, at the very minimum, surely merge them. Don't, because they, as far as I know, they let everyone at Ridgeline go, didn't they? It wasn't like some people kept their job. From what I know, the studio does not exist anymore, and everyone who worked there left. So surely bring some of those people over is my quarrel. Like, what? I don't know. It's all very confusing to me, and obviously I don't. Maybe it's just way above my head. I don't work at these companies. I don't know how they run. So I could just be a genuine idiot. But on paper, it doesn't look good, and especially in a time when there has been that many layoffs and stuff. Surely they are not that. Like, I don't know. They just don't read the room before they make these decisions. It's very baffling to me the way that they just go, all right, there's heaps of layoffs right now. We're going to lay off an entire team. Sorry, guys. And then months later, they're like, well, not even months later. It was like a month later. They're like, hey, we're building a whole new team working on the same game that team we just fired was working on. Like, it just sounds bad. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if there's actual, there may be, if someone fully explained it to me, I might be like, oh, that makes absolute sense. But this is the issue. They're not transparent about that stuff. And I know that they probably can't be when they're talking about so many people's jobs and all that kind of thing. But I don't know, a bit more transparency wouldn't go astray, I don't think.
It's just ridiculous. It's like, I called it a kick in the teeth for Ridgeline and Marcus Leto and everybody involved.
Yeah. Yeah, imagine how Marcus is feeling right now. He's already voiced his concerns with EA, and now he would be seeing that his team got shut down and then another one is being built to essentially replace them. Like that. I don't think he's going to be feeling any happier about EA after that decision.
And he just was like, oh, yeah, let's see what I want to do with my life. And I'm glad to be back on the internet. And then it's like immediately after, it's like, oh, yeah, how about this, buddy?
Yeah. Oh, man. It's all just a mess. I need him to stop like also changing in and out studios who work on Battlefield. Just get a Battlefield
Why
team.
do there need to be so many studios on Battlefield?
Yeah. I can understand having like how it was where there was DICE, and at the time DICE LA, which is obviously now Ripple Effect. That makes sense. You've got a team that builds the game, and then you've got a team that helps with the live service. That's fine. I don't have an issue with that. And then if there was like a Battle Royale, right? Having a team dedicated to that still maybe feels like you don't need a whole team dedicated to it, but I can get it. But now there's like, how many teams is there now? There's DICE, there's Ripple Effect, there's Motive, there's also Criterion has been added, haven't they?
Yeah, Criterion's been a part of it.
Yeah.
It's DICE, Ripple Effect, Criterion, Electronic Arts, Gothenburg, and now Motive. So that's 5 companies. And previously there was a 6th one that was it was the mobile team that was involved with Battlefield. I think it was. Yes, Industrial Toys, that's right.
So like, and that also I understood, because it's like, okay, you're making a mobile game, so that's a whole studio. That's completely fine. Yeah. But when like now we have got, as far as we know, the next Battlefield is just a Battlefield game. It's not going to sell a separate campaign. It's going to just be Battlefield. It'll probably have a campaign and multiplayer, and maybe even some sort of BR or some, like a third mode. That's fine. Yeah. Why is there 5 teams working on that? That's absurd. That is absolutely absurd. I've never seen a multiplayer game have 5 different individual studios. It's not like it's...
Even Fortnite doesn't have that.
Yeah. It's not like it's DICE Stockholm and then DICE LA, and it's the same. It's just 2 DICE studios. These are all individual studios. Every one of those studios you just named are individual companies, right? Why are they all working on one game? And don't get me wrong, if it pays off, because the thing with doing that is that if it's all managed properly and they can all actually have 5 whole studios who technically each individually should be able to make a Battlefield game themselves. If you've got 5 of them, it should, on paper, mean that okay, there's technically you're kind of buying yourself more time there, because instead of one team working on it, there's 5. You've almost created 5 times the amount of man hours to make the game. So therefore, instead of it being not that this is how it works, but just as the easy maths, if it's a 4-year cycle, times that by 5, you should technically be having 20 years of man hours put into it, if that makes sense. Not, again, that obviously sounds dumb as hell. I'm not actually saying that's how it works, but that's kind of the point I'm getting at, is that it could work really well, that you've got so many more people doing it, therefore it should be more polished, it should have more content, all that kind of thing. Yeah, but we also felt, we had that with 2042. There was freaking 48 teams on that as well, and it didn't pay off. So that's the part that concerns me, is that the whole too many cooks in the kitchen. This can go the other way, where if it's not managed well and the communication between teams isn't good and all that kind of thing, it could go drastically the other way, where it's just an absolute disaster at launch. Like, because DICE has done all of this side of it, but then Ripple Effect needed to get help from them off, on their area of the game, and then it wasn't communicated properly, so they've created a bunch of issues for themselves, and then when they need to update, remember like with Battlefront 2, they couldn't add star cards because the infrastructure of the game was like so bad.
So dumb.
Things like that can happen because DICE might do something that Ripple Effect didn't expect them to do, and they didn't communicate it, and then we need to later on add a new mode. Oh damn it, DICE didn't freaking... The infrastructure wasn't...
They didn't upload their changes, or who knows? They locked it, someone left that had the passcodes, who knows? Yeah,
like so many things can go wrong with it. So I'm nervous about it, but also if it is managed well, it could be great as well. I'm not even trying to say like completely form my opinion on it, because I don't know until it's out, but it can definitely go either way.
We saw how many studios Battlefield 2042 had and the amount of content, and didn't quite equal up. Westy commented on the Battlefield Bulletin has this really revealing graphic about how many maps each game did have. Like from Battlefield 1, it launched with 9 and had 20 post-launch maps. Battlefield 5 launched with 8 and then had 12 post-launch maps. Battlefield 2042 had 7 All-Out Warfare maps, 6 Portal, and then 7 post, over a 2.5-year cycle. The other games had basically a year of updates, give or take a few months. And Westy said 2042 only having 7 maps at launch was unacceptable. Battlefield games need 9 or 10 at launch, and for post-launch, after 2 absolute live service disasters. He says, I'll eat my words and say premium should come back, and I'll happily give EA $50 for 4 map DLCs. And Battlefield Bulletin replied with, I'm not so sure DICE would be able to offer 4 map expansion packs as they used to have. Among other things, because many people have left DICE since Battlefield 1 alongside the trend of BF5. That's why I believe we're now receiving support from other studios. And Westy replied with, which I think is great, forget DICE. Battlefield isn't DICE anymore. Battlefield is EA. It stopped being DICE a long time ago. If EA wanted to, they could deliver a lot more content than they have in 2042 seasons. With the amount of people working on this next game, it must have more content.
Yeah, it's all... Looking at that graphic, obviously the listeners can't see it, but it's jarring to see that. Because those other 2 games, like you said, they had about a year and a half. Because like Battlefield 1 was 2016 and Battlefield 5 was 2018. So that's 2 years between those 2 games. And the support didn't go right up to the last day. It was always like 5 to 6 months before that. So it's essentially
each
18
DLC
months.
pack was what, like 3 to 4 months, something like that, in between each other.
Yeah. So, yeah, I will say I disagree with Westy that it needs 9 or 10 at launch. I think 7's fine if they're good. It was the issue with 7 is that they all sucked.
Half of them were unplayable.
Yeah, so like if
and the other half just weren't fun.
Yeah, if you got 7 bad maps, you may as well have no maps because they're not fun. So if they launch the next one with 7, I'm not. For me, the number doesn't matter unless it's like 2. If you launch a game with 2 maps, that's obviously not good enough. I would say 6 to 7 is the bare minimum you can have, provided you're going to get into the seasonal content soon. But if they even
Yes.
launched with 6 maps, right, which sounds very bad, but if those 6 maps are all really good, and then in a month after launch, we're into season 1 and we get a new map, I'm fine with that. I don't need heaps of stuff. I just need good stuff. I just need good content with a good cadence. It doesn't even need to be 10 maps per season. Just give me, if it's a 3-month season, I do think one per season is not good enough. 2 maps every 3 months or something like that, which they've proven they can do in the past. Yeah, it's the cadence afterwards that was the issue there with 2042. The base maps, and not just the cadence, but the base maps were absolutely terrible as well.
Yeah, there's many issues with how Battlefield has handled its live service. And part of that is just how quickly they got into it, which means not quickly, and then how much time each season has taken. When you have a 4-month period and a single map comes out, that's bad. I'm not counting the map rework as a map. That should have been fixed at launch.
Yeah. That's something
one map over 4 or 5 months.
If we see that in the next game, if we see reworks, I'm going to be so mad. For this game, I appreciated them doing it because it was like they were so bad and they had to do that. But like, if they make that mistake again, unless it's just like a little, like we've updated the map to just sprinkle like in this one section of the map to sprinkle a bit more cover, that's fine. That's not a rework. That's just
or
an update.
Just like spawn points. That's fine. That happens in every first-person shooter online game.
Yeah, when it's a full rework to where like entire sections are completely different. That's for this game. I accepted it because it needed it, and I genuinely appreciated it. I was like, you know what? Like, thank you guys for doing. What I don't think anyone else would do. I don't think any other company would rework their base maps, but 2 games in a row would be.
But any other company wouldn't launch them in that state. So.
I mean, well, I've played a lot of Call of Duty games that have had terrible maps.
At least those maps are like smaller and more plentiful.
Yeah. The thing with Call of Duty maps is even when they suck, at least you're in the action straight away. So that's something that
you don't like get a crappy map and then have to walk for 7 miles.
Yeah. But it's interesting what he said about the premium side of it, because I never had an issue with premium, by the way, but it does split the player base, and I don't think if I gave them $50 for a season, it would make the content any better. I don't think I don't think throwing money at things always fixes it. I think that they need to put in the time, and maybe it would change the higher ups' view of it, because if they're guaranteed to get a bit more money, then they would allocate more resources to it. That's fair enough, but giving DICE and EA money does not confirm the maps will be good and we'll get more and stuff. So I don't know. I just look at there's so many other games out there that do more content than Battlefield for free as well. If like Fortnite every update was paid, then I'd probably be like, all right, well, look how good Fortnite's going, and you've got to pay for that. So let's just go back to premium. That'd be different. But all these games out right now, they put out a lot of content and it's all free. And if they can do it, why can't DICE? That's my thing. Why can't DICE do that? Then there needs to be definitely more content coming out. That's the main issue that I had with 2042. It took us nearly like a freaking year to get any content at all. And then, I was thinking about it the other day too, that like it's actually mental how similar of a timeline Battlefield 2042 and Battlefront 2 have got. They launched terribly. The first like 8 months was spent fixing it. Then we got drip-fed content until the 2.5-year mark in exactly April, and then they cancelled the game. It was almost I want to say it was almost exactly a year ago today. It's either today or it was really 2 weeks close that the Scarif update came out for Battlefront. So it's like the timeline is almost identical to that game. It just puts it in perspective that it feels like they didn't learn anything when they've had 2 games pretty much the exact same as each other in terms of how they went after launch.
If we're looking at the past to predict the future, it's not looking good.
Yeah, definitely.
You'll enjoy this, Sammy. So today, I volunteered at our local high school as part of our local like economic development nonprofit called FEDC, and I was there to basically interview the students as like a job interview. And at the end, you're like, okay, tell me a little bit about yourself. What are your interests in an internship? What are your career goals? And then at the end, there is an open question. This kid was very like big into video games, and I was like, "Oh, sweet. So, what kind of games do you like to play?" And he's like, "I love Rainbow Six Siege." I was like, "Oh my gosh, what?"
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, so we were geeking out about that. He loves Apex, but like his main game is Rainbow Six Siege, a game that came out like 8 years ago now.
Mm. Yeah, it's pretty mad, isn't it? How that and like games like Fortnite and stuff have lasted so long. Did you see the thing? There was a
that
stat the other
study,
day
yeah,
of 60% of playtime last. I think it was in 2023. Was from games. What was it? Was it 7 years or older, or 5 years or older, or something?
Yeah, 7 years or older.
That is mental. 60%. Think about also that was the biggest, like, best year of gaming we've ever had. All the games that came out last year, and still 60% of playtime across every video game in 2023 was from a game that was 7 years or older. That is,
and the only game I
absurd.
think that was in 2023 was Starfield.
Yeah. Yeah, in the top 10, wasn't it? The only game in the top 10.
Yeah, in the top 10.
Yeah, that's mental. Which is actually also ironic because Starfield, I really liked Starfield, but it didn't like review that well and stuff. Like a lot of people just think it was bad. And it's funny that that's actually in the top 10, the only one in the top 10 from the actual whole year. Mental. With all the games that came out last year, that blew my mind. So clearly there's a love for, like, I don't know, maybe that's what Battlefield has got to do. Maybe they make a long time, maybe they call it Battlefield and they just update it for 10 years. I don't know. Maybe
that was supposed to be the plan for 2042. Like, it was supposed to be the platform that Battlefield built on top of, and then it was like building on sand.
Yeah. I think it would be a good time to do it too, because if they did do that, right, they could launch it as Battlefield. It would be about 2 years if I had to guess, because I want to say the next gen consoles will be 2027. So it would give them about 2 years until the next gen consoles are out. Then they could do like kind of an update to the game where it's not a new Battlefield, but it's like the next gen version sort of thing. And then at that point, you've got a brand new console generation. You're 2 years into your live service and you've given it that update to like, so it's, you know, maybe slightly better graphics and just better frame rate and whatever. The game plays exactly the same, but it's just like just the same as they do for every other game sort of thing. And then at that point, you can just last that whole generation. Like you could just, you know, the PS6 era, you can just keep that Battlefield as that entire generation. And then when it's gearing up for the next gen, move to a new game. Because that's the only issue I have with games being really long term is that for a game like Rainbow Six Siege, every time I've played it, it does feel old, and I don't really like that.
Yeah.
Whereas with Fortnite, to be honest, it doesn't feel old, even though it is old. It came out in 2017. Like, game's not new, but because they've done those updates to it, where they genuinely, it's not Fortnite 2, but they like update a lot of stuff.
They moved the whole thing to Unreal Engine 5.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so I think that would be doable with Battlefield, and I wouldn't be opposed to that if it's done properly. It's just that I'm scared to commit to that. Imagine committing to 10 years of the next Battlefield when we don't even know it's good. That's my only concern with that. But if like, I'll say this, if it's guaranteed that the next Battlefield game is a 9 out of 10, I think I would prefer that. I think I would want it to just be called Battlefield.
Just keep it going.
Just keep it for the end of this generation and then the entire next generation of consoles. And then release it like on the PS7, release a new one. Because at that point it would be getting like super old unless they were just going to continue to update it again. But yeah, I'd be down for that. It's just that it's just scary to commit to because I don't trust them.
Yeah.
I don't trust them to launch it well at all.
Not at all. I don't know. I could definitely do 10 years of Angel's voice lines over and over again.
I would
don't
be
know about you, man.
genuinely in an insane asylum if I had to do that. I would not be able to. Nah. That's my thing with it, is like, if there's anything wrong with it would be, I just couldn't do it, man. They would need to make the game good, but also the tone of it good and the setting good and all that. That's my thing. Is it would need to be a 9 out of 10. If it's less than that, I don't think I could commit to a 10-year game. But then again, also, right, if it launched as an 8 out of 10, they have shown that they fix games
got
after
it to a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, so yeah, maybe I don't know, but it can't launch as like a freaking 5 out of 10 like the last few have. It needs to start good. It doesn't have to start at a 10. Just start at even a 7 or an 8 out of 10, and if you can get it to that really good spot, and then the next generation consoles come out and it gets a big update, like that, for example, would be at about this point of 2042. Imagine right now they were like, here's Battlefield 2042 like version 2, and it's all still the same game. You don't have to buy anything. It's just like you get a big update. They maybe slightly change. Remember they changed like the movement. I don't know I want to say that was season 5. They changed the actual running animations and stuff, like changes like that, and it genuinely makes the game better. I think it's a viable option. It's just that it's a lot harder to pull that off, and if you commit to it, and then 2 years,
you have to commit to it.
Yeah.
And Battlefield and DICE and all of their studios do not commit to the game.
Yeah, that's the issue with it, because, like you said, they didn't confirm that for 2042, but they definitely hinted that this was the platform for Battlefield moving forward.
Yeah.
And it just does not seem like that's the case at all now. So, yeah. Interesting.
I think what they should do is release the next game, do about 6, maybe 7 seasons, title the 7th season Turning Point, and then cancel the game.
Nah, DICE would never ever do that, surely.
Never. Or like after like years of reworking the game, getting into a really nice spot to where like a community loves it, offering it for free on the Epic Game Store, and then releasing a special edition called the Celebration Edition that unlocks everything that's an extra price, and then canceling it a month later. They could do that too.
They could. And you know what's funny about saying that is that both of those examples, Battlefront 2 and 2042, are actually prime examples of games that could have actually, if they stuck with them, they could have lasted like 10 years.
Gosh.
Because with the whole thing with the map reworks that I was saying before, it felt like a waste of time in this game, because it's like, that's time spent on content. We knew the game would only have about a 2 to 3 year window, right? So every update that we got with a map rework, it was kind of like, this is taking away from other stuff we should be getting. If this game was lasting 10 years, I would be stoked with the reworks, because it's lasting 10 years. So it's like, it's worth sinking that time into them. So yeah, it's kind of weird that they did the reworks and then don't commit to it. But then again, I say that I don't think 2042 is the game they could have committed to 10 years of. I think it's reputation. It needs to launch well so that people are interested straight away, because no matter, I don't care if you support 2042 for 10 years, 7 years from now, people aren't going to be talking about Battlefield 2042 positively if it's still getting supported. People would still be saying, that game launched terribly and it sucks. Even it could be the best Battlefield by that point, but it has to launch with a good reputation, keep people in there, and then carry on from that point. That's the key to it. It has to launch well.
DICE just needs a win. Like, honestly, like the fall of DICE. I can see the video essay writing itself now. They need a win. Like, they need that turnaround. They were close to like a cyberpunk moment, and then they're like, "Nah, fam, we ain't doing that."
Yeah, that's the annoying part, is they've gotten so close so many times. Like Battlefront 2, Battlefield 5, and I wouldn't count 2042 as much. I think I'm much more keen for this game to just be done. But Battlefield 5, that genuinely annoyed me. I was like shocked. I was like, why would you? You've just gotten it to this really good point. why would you do that decision? And it's obviously same with Battlefront 2. Looking back at Battlefront 2, I think I get it a bit more because like COVID and it still had so many issues. They couldn't really monetize it and stuff. So I'm a bit more, I don't forgive them for that because it's one of my favorite games of all time, but I think I understand that one a bit more. But Battlefield 5 like was genuinely a shock because I wasn't shocked about Battlefront 2 ending. I literally called it I did a video before the update went live and I said, I think this is the last one. Battlefield 5, I was fully shocked. I was like, what are you guys doing? Like, it genuinely blew me away. So, yeah. Like you said, they just need a win. They need to launch. I want to see a good Battlefield at launch for like the first time ever. I feel like it's been so long since that's happened that I can't actually remember it. Because Battlefield 3 launched well, as far as I remember. It had a few issues in the beta. It was a bit buggy and stuff, but I thought that era of Battlefield launched well. Maybe I just wasn't as in tune with it back then. I'm not sure, but I remember Battlefield 4 didn't launch well. I just want them to launch one and I'm playing it in the first week and I'm like, damn, this is actually good already. Like we're not talking 18 months later that I'm like, oh, it's finally good. I want to play it in the opening week and be like, damn, this is a good Battlefield game.
If only. One day, man. One day, hopefully, maybe after we're all dead and gone, they release a Battlefield game that doesn't suck. Or at least isn't mid. Like, as much as, like, Battlefield 2042, like, it was just, like, disappointing in many aspects. Battlefront 2's launch was just straight up bad, but I would rather take straight up bad than kind of like mid.
Yeah, because the thing with Battlefront was that it seemed
it changed the whole gaming landscape.
Yeah, it seemed like it was like, all right, you need to get rid of the pay to win side of it. You need to get rid of like you need to really ramp up the content side of it. But like it felt fixable. Whereas 2042 when it launched, I was a bit like, like, I think this is just the game. I don't know if you can fix that. You know?
Yeah.
It just felt mid. And I still to this day would say, even though I've enjoyed 2042, it is a very mid Battlefield. There's nothing about it that makes me go like, oh, this part of it was sick. Nothing in this game is like really, really good. There's not one element of it that I'm like, they should bring that to the next one. Whereas even with Battlefield 5, there's part like the behemoth system, I mean the call-in system and the fortification system and stuff.
I would love that.
The game itself I didn't love until the end anyway, but there were parts of it that I really enjoyed, but I can't really put a finger on a single part of 2042 that I genuinely like. Maybe the plus system, but that's like such a small thing that it's like not even worth mentioning. That's like a tiny element.
I also forget about it though.
Yeah, same. I'm at the point where I just have my weapon that is built and I just use the same weapon every game and I just play the game. Like I don't deviate weapons anymore. I load in. I have 2 or 3 specialists that I like to play depending on the map. And with each specialist, I've kind of just got a loadout that I use every single time.
Yeah, same. Like, don't really change it that much. I accidentally activated the plus system. I was like, oh yeah, that's here. Totally forgot about that. Because once you find your layout, like, you're just going to use that.
Yeah.
As much as, like, I think it's cool and I think it should be carried over into the future, like, if it's not there, I'm not going to miss it.
It only really works for a few guns where, like, you changing the magazine. For example, the BSVM, I can't remember the name of it. The one that has like good range on it, but it also turns into, it's like a DMR crossed with a SMG.
Oh yeah.
Like that is really good with the plus system because you can use it as borderline a sniper and then also a literal SMG. So like it's really good for that. But like when I'm using my M5, I don't ever feel the need to like put a different scope on and stuff like that. It just doesn't happen. So, but I still really like. I'll be annoyed if it's not in the next one. Like I'll be really disappointed. It's one of those features that, like the behemoth system, it's like now that that's in there and people like it, don't remove those things.
Just take all the features that you've removed from the past few games, put them all in one game, and then release that.
Yeah.
Be great. But let us know your thoughts on all of what we have discussed. How do you feel about Battlefield Season 7 being the last season? Are you excited about the future of the Battlefield franchise? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below if you're watching this on YouTube, or contact at uplinkpodcast.com if you listen to this wherever you find podcasts. As always, check out Sammy Boy's YouTube channels, which we linked below. And if you're into Star Wars, check out Star Wars Uplink. As always, we'll see you later, video gamers.